the gallows on their axis prime. The skies above their axis prime were always too clean, sterile strips of indigo, cut by neat contrails of Empire patrol ships. No birds, no clouds, just silence. People gathered anyway. Hundreds of humans stood beneath the golden spire of the Ministry of Harmony, their faces pale under the weight of what was about to unfold. Armed sentinels, 8-foot-tall insectoid Cravari enforcers, lined the square with plasma rifles slung across their chitinous arms. Energy fences buzzed, pinning in the crowd like cattle. 3 women stood on the Blackstone platform, shackled, silent. Dr. Naomi Velasquez, 53, teacher and poet, known on Mars for her writings on dignity and soul. Naya Thorne, 29, a coder from Luna who hacked Empire firewalls to distribute forbidden Earth literature. And Lydia Rail, just 37, mother, organizer, former diplomat. Her daughter, Elia, stood in the crowd now, clutching her father's hand so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The sentence had been declared 2 days earlier. Treasonous propagation of unauthorized historical narratives. Cultural destabilization. Sedition. No trial. No appeal. The crowd whispered prayers. Others held back tears. A few stood rigid, fury trembling just beneath their skin. But none moved. An announcer's voice rang out from a hovering drone above the square. In accordance with Directive 882B of the Galactic Empire, the following individuals are to be executed for crimes against Imperial cohesion. Let this serve as a deterrent to other species. 3 nooses dropped. The air shifted. Lydia Rail raised her chin, scanning the crowd. Her eyes locked with Elias, calm, fierce, burning with love. She mouthed 3 words, "Be the fire." The floor opened beneath them. Elia didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood, her hands slack in her father's grasp. The man beside her, Major Dorian Rail, former Earth Defense Force, tensed like a collapsing star. His eyes locked onto the platform, onto the Cravari guards, onto the Empire flag flapping above them, a silver circle encasing a black void. He didn't say a word. The silence after the hanging was heavier than any sound. Elia didn't remember the walk home. Didn't remember the muted condolences from neighbors or the flicker of her mother's face on censored news screens. But she remembered that night, the way her father stood in his old uniform by the window, unmoving, staring into the sky. At some point, he turned to her. "They want us afraid," he said. "They think we'll break like the others." Fold into silence. Elia didn't speak. She simply looked at him, her mother's steel alive in her gaze. He nodded. "I won't let her die for nothing," he said quietly. "But what comes next, it won't be fair. Or easy. It'll burn." He took off his medals, placed them on the table, and disappeared into the black. No goodbye. No note. Just a man who had been patient with an empire that promised peace, but delivered tyranny. Elia was left with the silence. The Galactic Empire filed the incident as cultural recalibration enforcement, a minor footnote in their bureaucratic logs. No mention of Earth's protests, no coverage of the outrage spilling across the colonies. But in human homes, behind encrypted firewalls, in underground bunkers on Ceres and dark code forums and Martian data hubs, the footage spread like wildfire. 3 women, 3 nooses, 3 hearts that refused to bow. The image became a symbol, a rallying cry. Some called for justice. Others called for revenge. And some, those who had seen what humanity could be when pushed too far, began preparing for war. Deep in the asteroid belts, hidden stations lit up with unauthorized activity. Warships long decommissioned were pulled from dry dock and painted black. AI systems marked as too aggressive were reactivated with modified cores. On Luna, a group of engineers cracked the Empire's comm protocols. On Earth, rogue generals began to coordinate. No one claimed responsibility. No one made threats. But the silence changed. Where once humanity waited for respect and recognition, now it whispered something else. Something old. Something primal. They hanged our women. And that was the last line history would ever write before the fire started. The breaking of the chains. They tried to censor the footage. The Galactic Empire issued automated takedowns across the holonet, flagged it as xenoprovocation, scrubbed faces and names. But it was too late. The hanging of 3 human women was already carved into the collective soul of Earth's children. On Ceres, it played on a loop inside abandoned mining tunnels, the walls scrawled with rage-fueled slogans. On Mars, it was projected across the Olympus Mons broadcast array, 10,000 meters of defiance, visible even to orbiting patrols. On Earth, the silence of the skies grew tense, heavy, like breath held before the scream. The Terran Accord wasn't born in a government hall. It didn't come from Earth's fractured United Councils or Luna's corporate syndicates. It emerged from grief, the raw, elemental kind that reshapes civilizations. It began with whispers, encrypted forums, closed-loop messages, codes embedded in lullabies and forgotten Earth songs. Former soldiers connected with rogue engineers. Disillusioned students messaged retired generals. The rage was everywhere. All it needed was focus. They called themselves the Accord, a name pulled from a failed treaty once meant to unify Earth's fractured nations. Now it meant something different. Unity, not through negotiation, but through purpose. By the time the Empire noticed the change, it was already too late. Humanity had vanished from the surface. Earth's official comm lines fell quiet. Colonies appeared cooperative, docile. On the surface, it seemed the executions had worked. The rebellion snuffed out before it could bloom. But beneath that quiet surface, the fire burned. On the far side of Luna, within an ice-sealed structure called Black Echo, rogue AI architects reactivated forbidden code. The program, codenamed Nemesis, had been mothballed after being deemed too aggressive for conventional warfare. Now, it began to hum again. Its first task, simulate 10 million scenarios of asymmetric warfare against Imperial fleets. On Titan, Terran biohackers engineered neural boosters using salvaged alien tech. Human pilots could now move twice as fast as their enemies. Their minds operated in overclocked focus, trained to fight not like soldiers, but like predators. On Earth, volcanoes long thought dormant were tapped as hidden power stations. Factories awoke in secret. Every shuttle off-world was now weaponized. Civilians trained in underground bunkers. Children memorized alien anatomy the way their ancestors had studied multiplication. No declarations, no public flags, just a growing understanding passed from hand to hand. Never again. At the edge of the asteroid belt, the Accord struck its first blow. The communications relay at Station Helix 9, an Imperial node responsible for intersectoral transmissions, detonated in a flash of white-hot plasma. No trace of the attackers remained. A simple message was left behind, etched into the fusion scars on the debris. We remember the news. The Empire issued a warning, a curfew, an investigation. But the silence from humanity continued. Not out of fear, out of calculation. In the shadows, Ash trained. She had stopped using her birth name the day her mother's body was cremated. 6 years had passed since the gallows of Axis Prime. She was no longer the frightened child clutching her father's hand. She was lean, sharp-eyed, and fluent in 3 alien dialects. She could disable a Kravari War suit in 6 seconds. She could kill in 4. The Widowmakers, a ghost unit trained for infiltration, sabotage, and assassination, followed her not because of rank, but because of fire. Each of them had lost someone. Each of them had watched the footage. And each of them believed in one simple truth. There is no peace without justice. Her father, Dorian Rail, had become one of the ghosts, leader of a shadow fleet operating outside any official Earth command. He taught Ash everything before vanishing again into deep space. Rumors said he was building something at the edge of the galactic core, something monstrous enough to challenge entire fleets. Ash didn't need to know. Her war was smaller, more personal. Her first mission was simple. A convoy of Imperial judges was scheduled to pass through Sector 13A. One of them had signed her mother's death sentence. Ash's team boarded the judge's cruiser without alerting a single sensor. When the ship was found adrift days later, its crew gone, A single message was carved into the control panel. You hanged our women. We will hang your kings. The Empire's High Council convened in panic. Their advisors warned them. Humanity isn't rebelling. Humanity is transforming. But it was already too late. In silence and shadow, the Terran Accord had shed its chains. And the war was no longer a question of if, only when. The culling stars burned. The first time an Imperial dreadnought burned, the stars themselves seemed to flinch. It happened in orbit over Vascaran 3, a minor supply world guarded by what the Empire considered sufficient force, a single battlecruiser and a contingent of Kravarian forcers. Humanity disagreed. The attack came with no warning, no formal engagement, and no precedent. A swarm of what the Empire had labeled insignificant assault drones emerged from the asteroid field, weaving through flak like needlework. They struck not the hull, but the cooling vents. Precision over power. The resulting explosion tore the dreadnought apart from the inside, venting its admiral and half the crew into the void. 2 hours later, every Imperial outpost within a 2-jump radius went dark. On the blackened wreckage of the cruiser, someone left a simple message etched in acid into the command deck. We are the weight of the rope. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire acknowledged a rebellion not as a localized insurgency, but a systemic threat. New edicts were passed. Entire planets were locked down. Civilian species were warned not to aid Terran terrorists. But the terror didn't come from civilians, it came from ghosts. The Terran Accord now operated from mobile bases, retrofitted mining rigs, rogue AI cores hidden in comet tails, stealth fleets running on stolen singularity drives. They attacked not where the Empire was strongest, but where it was sure of its strength. Bureaucrats vanished. Judges were found crucified against the hulls of their own ships, frozen in space. Propaganda hubs exploded in sequence, replaced with hacked broadcasts showing the 3 women on the gallows. And over it all, the whisper became louder. We do not forgive. We do not forget. You hanged our women. Ash led from the front. She had become a myth to the Empire, a faceless operative known only as Widow One, rumored to bleed smoke and speak 100 languages. But her focus remained singular. Find the architects of her mother's execution and dismantle them one by one. Her team struck deep into the Empire's heart on Obsidia. 4. Disabling a cloning lab responsible for producing Kravarian forcers. They didn't destroy it. Instead, they reprogrammed it to produce messages carved into flesh. This is what fear looks like. The alien species who once mocked humanity now looked over their shoulders. Even allies of the Empire whispered about Terran vengeance as if it were a disease. But it wasn't vengeance. Not exactly. It was reckoning. Humanity didn't fight like other species. The Empire had spent eons building a war machine forged on predictability, strategies optimized by AI consensus, troop deployments governed by historic outcome matrices. But humans weren't mathematical. They fought like artists, unpredictable, erratic, painfully personal. They didn't attack to win battles. They attacked to deliver meaning. On Carthus Prime, a major logistics world, the Accord didn't bomb the port. Instead, they hacked the planetary hologrid. Every screen broadcast the execution footage on repeat. Every broadcast tower screamed one sentence: "We have not forgotten." Supply lines shut down from panic alone. In the Empire's war rooms, data analysts wept. Their algorithms failed to anticipate human strikes. Projections fluctuated hourly. Morale dipped. Imperial officers refused certain assignments, fearing they'd be next on the rope list. In less than 8 months, the humans had destroyed 6 major cruisers, crippled trade in 12 systems, and executed 17 high-ranking officials. But what truly terrified the Empire was the pattern. There wasn't one. Then came the leak. A classified memo reached the Accord, signed by the Imperial Tribunal. It was a contingency plan, Project Quiet Earth. If humans could not be subdued, they would be erased. Total planetary sterilization. Ash read the document in silence. Then, without ceremony, she transmitted it across every open channel, encrypted or not. She wanted them to know. She wanted everyone to know. And then she spoke. Her voice, measured and clear, echoed across the stars. This was never rebellion. This is retribution. You wrote our fate in gallows. Now we will write yours in fire. That night, 3 more systems fell. The culling stars burned, no longer Imperial weapons, but Terran torches. The galaxy watched in silence, not because they doubted humanity's wrath, but because, in their hearts, they feared it might be justified. The day the Empire bled. They never expected Earth to rise. Not really. The Galactic Empire, a sprawl of trillions across 1,000 stars, had ruled with sterile precision for millennia. Civilizations fell not through fire, but by the weight of policy and protocol. Resistance was expected, brief, passionate, and ultimately doomed. Every species broke eventually, but not humans. Not after the gallows. The Accord's final operation began without ceremony. No grand announcement. No mass fleet deployment. Just a single signal broadcast across a hidden spectrum known only to Earth's scattered defenders. Ignite. Across the galaxy, every hidden Terran cell activated in unison. On the edge of the erection system, black flag cruisers emerged from behind ice moons, shredding a supply convoy and leaving no survivors. At the heart of the Yovan Belt, sabotage teams triggered a cascade failure in the Empire's largest military databank, erasing fleet routes and combat protocols. 22 dreadnoughts were left blind and deaf, easy prey. But the true target wasn't a supply line, nor a fleet, nor even a capital. It was Valanthus Prime, the administrative heart of the Empire, home to its ruling caste, its tribunal, its doctrine, a planet that had never seen war, never heard sirens. Until that day, the assault began as a whisper in the network, data ghosts, false alerts, misleading telemetry. Then, without warning, Valanthus' planetary defense grid collapsed. Orbital shields shattered under precision kinetic strikes from invisible ships running ancient Earth software. The Empire's High Council didn't have time to flee. Ash walked through fire. Her dropship hit the surface at midnight, cloaked in chaos. Around her Widowmaker squads struck control centers, obliterated archives, and purged genetic banks. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to end. Ash moved like the blade of history, cutting through Kravari guards with fluid precision. Her rifle sang in short, measured bursts. Her blade, ceremonial, carbon forged from her mother's gravestone, spoke a louder truth. She breached the tribunal hall alone. The council was there, all 12 of them, Xenos cloaked in regality, trembling behind golden armor and shields that had never been tested in battle. One of them tried to speak, to offer terms. Ash shot him in the mouth. "No more trials," she said. "No more mercy. You hang my mother." The others didn't argue. She didn't make a speech. She didn't gloat. She simply executed them one by one, each shot echoing through a hall that had once judged billions. Outside, the Empire's banners burned. In the sky above, human carriers descended in black flocks, deploying terraforming bombs to rewrite the surface. Symbols of dominion were erased, monuments toppled, and data cores uploaded into Earth's archives. It was not annihilation. It was remembering. At dawn, Ash stood at the same platform where the Empire had once executed dissenters. She erected 3 statues. Naomi Velasquez, Naya Thorne, Lydia Rail, 3 women who had sparked the inferno. No Empire official remained to witness it. Only humans, survivors, fighters, and children born into war who would now inherit peace. She looked across the ruined square, the same shape as the one on their Axis Prime. "This is where they tried to break us," she whispered. "And this is where we break them." Transmission towers carried her voice to every world still watching. To all species oppressed under the shadow of tyranny, humanity has stood, not because we are strong, but because we remember. You do not hang daughters without consequence. You do not silence truth without war. The Accord is not an army. It is a promise, and we keep our promises. There was no reply, just silence. Then, system by system, colony by colony, alien races began rising. Protests flared. Rebellion sparked. Civil wars ignited from embers long buried. The Empire, once eternal, began to collapse, not from the outside, but from within. Ash watched it fall with no joy, only purpose. In the quiet that followed, Dorian Rail returned. He stepped from a stealth frigate bearing the scars of too many battles. His uniform faded, his eyes harder than she remembered. Father and daughter didn't embrace. They simply nodded. She'd be proud, he said. She'd expect more, Ash replied. He smiled. Then let's give it to her. And from the ashes of an empire, a new force rose, not built on domination, but memory. A war not fought for power, but for the right to never forget. Because in the end, it was never about territory, or vengeance, or even justice. It was about the day they hanged Earth's daughters, and the war that made the stars remember their names.